Welcome everybody. I'm so sorry that I'm quite late in doing this live today. I've actually been traveling to come and see my family, my in-laws, and we haven't seen them for 3 months because we've been in lockdown, but finally we're able to go out and about. So we've just come to see my mother-in-law and also see this incredible, amazing view. This is why I love Malaysia. It's so beautiful. But I didn't want to miss this live session. So even though I'm visiting family, I thought that I'll come on and answer some of the questions that you've sent to me. And thank you all so much for the lovely comments that you've given on the last Q&A that I had. I really appreciate that. I am someone who's quite shy, so coming on here and doing these lives, it really makes a difference to have feedback from everyone. It gives me that kind of inspiration and eagerness to keep going. And I'd like to answer a few of the questions that I received today. So the first one, which I've got from about 4 or 5 different people, is, do we have to use cursive in Montessori? So there isn't any definitive answer to say that yes, you must use cursive, or no, you should use print. In the Montessori method, when Maria Montessori was working with the children, she was teaching them in Italian, and she was using cursive from what I remember. So a lot of people will naturally think that they need to use the cursive because that's what Maria Montessori used, but actually, you know, it's very much a personal decision that you can, do. And I really recommend that what you do is you first of all research the benefits of using cursive over print. And then you can make your own decision about what's right for your family or for your school. I do recommend, if possible, that you do go for the cursive, because there are advantages for using cursive when you are teaching children to read and write. And some of those advantages are that, you know, children who learn to write in cursive, they will have improved handwriting, they will have improved spelling. Some of the research shows that. Also, there's research that shows that they'll have increased comprehension. And you know, the way that the neuron connections in your brain pick up cursive is going to be different from how it picks up print. I myself never ever use the regular print writing at all. And in my school in Malaysia, I've chosen to use a specific font, which is called the Sassoon font, and it's kind of a bridge between cursive and print. So you'll have the exit strokes that you have in cursive, but there are none of the entrance strokes that you have in cursive. And I find that font is really nice because the letters that are complicated, such as the B and the D and the P, will all look different because the D will have a tail, whereas the B doesn't, and so on. So the child can really see the differences in those letters. And also, using a font which is kind of a hybrid between the two means that the child has access to both fonts. Some people, they ask me if the child is taught to read in the font, do we then have to taught to read in cursive? Do we then have to show them all of the materials with cursive writing? And no, you don't have to do that. Children who learn their letters in cursive, they will really easily be able to pick up the letters in print without much difficulty, and they will be able to read print. And most of our books and newspapers and so on will all be written in print. So it's really important that you don't overdo the cursive and just limit them to only cursive text. You want to give them all sorts of book. So you'll see that children who learn cursive, they'll be able to read both the cursive and the print. But the children who learn print will find it a lot more difficult to kind of decipher the cursive writing. So, you know, you can see that in itself is an advantage. It's an advantage that children who have cursive, they'll be able to read both, whereas children who just do the print will not be able to read the cursive. So you can see there already. And cursive is a much more natural way of writing. So I do recommend, if possible, if you have the opportunity, to introduce the children to cursive. I know that in Malaysia, most people will write in print, and it's really hard to find any text or anyone who has cursive handwriting. It's something that I've hardly seen since I've come here. And one of the beautiful things that I've noticed about Malaysian handwriting is it's all really neat and cute. The way that, you know, the Malaysians write their handwriting is so lovely. So you might find that there is a bit of opposition if you choose to use cursive in Malaysia. But the good thing is that children who learn cursive, they'll be able to write in print as well, and they'll be able to read in print. So you're not limiting your child. In fact, you're adding something else onto your child. And the advantages of the neuron connections and the advantages of the spelling and the comprehension is really, really good. And if you look at the comments now, you'll see that Professor Mahey is also adding that, cursive writing really helps develop dexterity, and it really does. You'll see that if you introduce your child to cursive writing, you'll see that there is an added advantage. So yes, if you can go ahead with the cursive writing, I really recommend you do it. I recommend you'll see that your child's writing will be flowing a lot easier, their comprehension will be better, they'll have better spelling. Those are advantages that you don't want to miss. But if you feel that you can't go for the cursive, then I recommend you use a hybrid font such as the Sassoon letters. And those Sassoon letters were specifically designed they're designed so that they provide that bridge, and they give the children that opportunity to be able to quickly go on to cursive writing if they choose to later, or they can write their letters separately. So that really, really helps. If you do go for the cursive, do not panic and think that every single piece of material has to be in cursive. No, just have the cursive sandpaper letters, have the cursive movable alphabet, and that's enough. Even if your language materials are written in print, your child will be able to read it. The important thing is not that the child is seeing everything in cursive. The important thing is that your child is able to read the text that is around them, and they will be able to do that. So give that for your child. And as you can see, Professor Mahia, who knows a lot because she's a medical doctor, she's talking about the neuron connections there. So do read those comments. That's really, really important. And it's really beautiful, especially for the young children, when you see that they have this exposure to cursive. So I hope that's answered the question. And don't panic. Don't feel like you have to change if you're teaching your child print. You can, transition to cursive if you feel that's what you want to do, or you can continue with print and teach cursive later on. Children in my school who are in the elementary and have never done cursive, we will introduce cursive as like a handwriting or penmanship activity, and they love it and they get it even at that stage. So that's my take on cursive handwriting. I hope that answered your questions. Another really interesting question that I had recently is about grace and courtesy. So one of the mothers has sent me a message and said that, how can I encourage my child to develop manners and grace and etiquettes, and how can I ensure that my child will grow up to have those as part of his personality? So the first and most important thing is the way that you talk to your child. If you talk to your child with respect, with manners, with grace, in a loving and understanding way from birth, your child is going to absorb that, and it's going to become part of how they think about themselves and how they think about others and how they communicate with others. These grace and manners are going to come directly from you. So the moment you become a mother, you need to look at yourself first, reflect on yourself and think, what is it in your own language or your own expression that you would rather your child doesn't absorb from you? You need to think about that, and then you need to work on changing those things that are within you. So one of the things for me personally when I had my son is I knew that my relationship with my mum at the time wasn't too good, and I didn't want him to absorb that relationship and that way that I spoke to my mum, which, I was quite young, so maybe it wasn't really the best way, and I didn't want him to absorb that. I wanted him to absorb a relationship which was really respectful, really, really loving, really, really, really kind. And because of my son, he pushed me to reflect on my relationship with my parents and change my relationship with my parents. And that has been such a positive impact both on his life and on my life. And because he's observed me as somebody who's really been loving and caring and understanding to my mum, and always, talking to her with the utmost respect, even if she's trying to convince me of something that, I maybe don't want to do because I'm an adult and, I have my own ideas and decisions that I want to make. Even if that's the case, I made sure I always replied to her in a really graceful manner, and he absorbed that. So the first step is always to look at yourself, because from birth, your child is going to be absorbing the way that you talk, the way that you interact, the way that you express yourself, and the way that you handle your own emotions and your own expectations. Your child is going to be absorbing that, and they're going to use that to formulate the way that they are going to be talking to other people. So it's really, really, really important that you change yourself first. Change yourself, and also it should be both parents. It's not just the mother, it's the mother and the father. Both of you change yourself. Change how you interact with people around you. Change how you interact with your parents. Change how you interact between each other. Sometimes I've seen parents who have young children and they argue in front of their children and they say it's okay because they're young and they don't understand. But your young child is going to absorb all of that energy and interaction, and it's going to be part of their, their inner talking that's going to run them later on as an adult. So you have to make sure that you really, really pay attention to how you are interacting with each other. Make sure as parents that you don't argue in front of your children, that you don't talk, to each other in a way that's disrespectful, because the children are going to copy that. So that's the first thing. Correct yourself. Correct yourself, because that's going to have the biggest impact on your child's manners and grace later on. The next thing that you want to do is, ensure that the way you are talking to your child is always role modeling that correct grace and courtesy. Now, with young children who don't talk, or young children who are not, able to say things like please and thank you, I would always say it for them as if they said it. So if a child has come to me and they have, asked for some water. This just happened yesterday. There was a little, 1-year-old girl who came up to me, and I had a glass of water in my hand, and she looked at my water. She can't tell me what she wants, but I knew she wanted the water. And then she, looked at me, and then we said, "Do you want water?" And then she just kind of like nodded, and then I gave it to her, and I said, "Thank you." And that's me saying her thank you for her. So I am modeling what she should say. I'm not forcing her to say it. And I'm not standing there saying, you have to say thank you. No, I'm just really kindly, in a very loving way, as if we are one person, and unitedly, as if I'm one person, saying the thank you for her. If you are constantly doing that with your child, every single time, you're modeling that interaction. Every single time that you want them to say please, you model it with them together. Every single time you want them to say thank you to anybody, you are modeling it with them together as if you're one person. Then your child will begin to develop that inner language, and that inner language will come out of your child at the right time in the right place. But if you are using another kind of method where you yourself are not modeling the language with your child, but when your child is meeting other people outside, you're suddenly asking them to say please and thank you, then your child it's not part of their repertoire of language. It's not part of their experience. It's not going to be something that's going to come to them naturally. And you see a lot of times children will just turn around and say no. And the reason they say no, because it's not already there from inside them. So you have to model that with your children. And I've seen a lot of parents who feel uneasy to say please or thank you to their children. I don't know why, but it should be really, really easy for you to say please and thank you to anybody of any age. This should be a normal thing that we would be doing all along our interactions with everybody. So don't feel that you can't say thank you to your child if they, bought your handbag. You ask them, "Can you get my handbag for me, please?" And they bought it. Say please, say thank you. Model that language with your child, because they're going to basically copy that, and that's how they're going to talk to other people. This is actually what really, really works. This is the first thing that really works. Even if you send your child to school, the grace and manners is going to come from home, and it's going to come from the parents. So take this as a really, really important thing, because we are living in a day and age where manners are lost. And we're living in a day and age where, we're kind of in this one big culture and a lot of traditions are lost, a lot of manners are lost, grace is lost, and everyone seems to do what they want to do. So our children are not going to go outside into the world and see this grace and manners a lot. Unfortunately, this is the time that we're living in. So you really have to make sure that you yourself, your interactions with other people and your interactions with your child are going to be full of these grace and courtesy, full of thank you, full of please, full of love, full of respect, because your child is going to get it from you. So we can actually change the future of humanity and bring back these manners and bring back this grace and bring back this love by the way that we interact with our children in ourselves at home. So I really, really recommend you take that step back. And one of the things that I did is I took a step back and I thought, what do I want my son to actually say independently by himself? What do I want him to say? So one of the things that I really wanted him to do was, if he didn't hear somebody, to say pardon rather than say what. Because in England, in London especially, it's really, really known that everybody would just say what, if they don't hear. And I didn't want him to do that. I wanted him to be really, really polite and to say pardon. And so I really practiced that myself with him all the time. And then we had this little, he was about 5, 6, and he would always say pardon, pardon, pardon. And people would say to me, oh, he's so polite. Where did he get that from? And I said, well, he's the one who taught me, because he made me consider myself first and my own manners and my own interactions with people. And then he, and then I changed my way, and then he showed me that actually this is a better way of living. So I saw that impact really, doing this from a young age with him. I saw the impact it has. And till today, even if my son is in a room full of people who swear or people who talk badly or harsh, he doesn't like it, because it's not natural. Because in that early period of 0 to 6, he was having that really respectful interaction, and so he has that as part of his character. So you can see the importance of that. I'm just going to have a look, because I know I've got some questions that have come up. So one of the points that's come up is that sometimes we will be polite to other people and then they will not reply in the right way. And we have to just, let our children know that we're not doing this. We're not treating people with love and respect so that they treat us back with love and respect. We're not doing this to get anything. We're doing this because this is how we want to be. We want to be loving, we want to be respectful, we want to have manners. We're doing it because this is what we want to do. And for those of us who are Muslim, manners is such an important thing. And I would always bring in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and talk that he was the one that had the best manners, and we want to be like him. So we want to always ensure that we are improving our manners and always make sure that we are, speaking to people in the best way possible. So, especially today, we're in a society where, it's lacking so much in terms of grace and manners. And our children have to know that they're not doing it for the society, they're not doing it for the people, they're not doing it to get anything back, they're doing it for their own internal satisfaction, that they are using grace and manners. And if you build that in your child, then later on, no matter where they go in the world, no matter what situation they're in, it will be part of their character that they will always carry with them. So this is really, really important. I'm so glad that somebody asked that question. Hold on a second, I've just pressed something. Another way that you can help your child develop manners is through the Montessori Grace and Courtesy lessons. And for those, what we would do is we would sit the children in a small little group. Usually we would do this in the classroom, but you could do this at home. We'd sit the children in a small little group and we would talk about one aspect of grace or manners, and we would role model it. So we would show them, like, for example, how to get the attention of an adult or of your mother when they're talking to somebody else. And we would role model, we would show them what it is that we want the child to do. So for example, in our Montessori classroom, if the child wants to have the attention of an adult and the adult is busy working, then or talking to somebody, then the child will go up to them and tap them on their shoulder, and then they'll go back to their work. So you could do that at home as well. You can get your child used to the routine that if they want to talk to you but you're talking to somebody else, or you're busy doing something, they can come up to you, pat you on the shoulder, and then go back, and then you then have to respond. That once you finish what you're doing, you go up to the child and you say to the child, did you pat me on the shoulder? Did you want to tell me something? And then give them that opportunity to tell you. So we will do these little role models, and in the 3 to 6 classroom, these role models would just be, very, very simple grace and courtesy things, how to say please, how to say thank you. But then when it comes to elementary, because they're in the age of socialization, we would go into depth into each and every interaction, how to apologize to somebody if you've done something wrong, how to let somebody know if they've hurt your feelings. We'll go through all of that, and we will just keep role modeling. It will be happening every single day, and because we are doing it again and again and again and again, the child will begin to develop that thought pattern and that understanding of how they can interact with other people with grace and manners and care. They will develop that. So that's basically how we do it, and this is something that's really, really important for children who have special needs, because I mentioned this in an earlier video, but children who have autism, they might not just pick up the grace and manners just through seeing other people do it. They will actually need you to sit there and actually talk about it specifically and give them specific guidelines and specific role plays, and they'll need to see it again and again and again and again so they can develop that language. So for children who do have special needs or autism, these grace and courtesy lessons are a really, really important thing, and I really believe that they should be happening in every single household. No matter how young your child is, make it like a game, like a family event where we all sit together and we practice how to say excuse me when somebody's in our way. We practice how to ask somebody for help. Make it part of your everyday life, and you'll see your children will develop all of that grace and courtesy, and it will become part of them, and you yourself will change because you will be doing it for your children, and you'll see that you yourself will change. So thank you so much for asking that question. That was a really, really important question, and I'm glad that we've addressed that. I've got another question on here about how do we do Montessori with no materials? So this is something that I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, that you don't have to have all of the Montessori materials. In fact, you don't even have to have any of the Montessori materials to be implementing Montessori. And on the other hand, you can have every single piece of Montessori material, and if you're not implementing the philosophy, you're not doing Montessori, because Montessori is not the materials. The Montessori method of education is not the materials. It's a philosophy of a way of life, how we live with children, interact with children, support their growth and their development according to the natural rhythm of their individual growth and development, right? That's what Montessori is. Montessori only works if you are applying the philosophy. It's not necessary to buy everything. Years ago, the materials were not widely available. There was only a few manufacturers, and it would only be the schools that bought them. And even the schools wouldn't buy everything. We would only have basic sets, and we'd slowly build them up, every year, buy a few more materials. Nowadays, things are so accessible. And also, we are really stuck in this consumerism lifestyle. So we tend to just, when we catch on to something, we buy everything for it. But that's not Montessori. Montessori is about understanding the natural unfolding, the natural growth and development of the child, and supporting the child and being with the child on their journey of developing their inner self and fulfilling their potential. And you can do that without any materials. You can do that just simply by understanding the Montessori method. And I really recommend for people, when you first get onto the Montessori method, I really recommend that you first build an understanding of the philosophy before you buy anything. The first thing you should buy should be a book or a course about Montessori, not a wooden Montessori material. because it's only when you develop that understanding, then you'll begin to know what's the right material to buy for your child, what's the right thing to have for them, and then you'll be able to make those choices. But if you go out and buy everything and don't take the time to develop your understanding and develop your own self, then those materials are not going to do Montessori for you, because Montessori is all about you and your approach to the child. So change yourself so that you are being a Montessori parent, you are being a Montessori adult. And then later on, you can look at the materials and you can look at all of that. That's my advice. And I hope you've understood why I do, talk in the other videos about doing Montessori without any materials, because it is totally possible. I just noticed that the sky in the background is turning purple and it's matching my hijab, and it's looking quite perfect. So that, I guess this is one of the nice treats about coming here, is to kind of catch this on camera and see how beautiful Malaysia is. Another question that's come up is, somebody has said that they're seeing in a lot of the videos and pictures posted by other teachers and parents who are doing Montessori that they use a plain rug, right? And why do we use a rug? So in the Montessori classroom, usually we would have mats that we use on the floor or mats that we use on the table, and those would be to isolate the child's working space. So if the child is working with an activity, they would work within that mat. Now, when you're in a classroom and you have about 24 children, it really helps to have their area of work isolated, because it means that the other children will know that's their working space. They won't interfere, they won't interrupt them, they won't get in the way, and everybody will know that that's this is where this child's working, so I'm going to walk around them, I'm not going to disturb them. We use mats on the table so that we protect the table surface so that it doesn't get damaged or get marks on from materials or so on. Usually the mats will be plain, and the reason for a plain mat is because we don't want the mat to distract the child. If there is a pattern or colors on it, it's going to distract the child from the actual material that they're working on. And one of the principles of the Montessori materials is that we isolate the difficulty, or we isolate the specific aspect that we're focusing on. And if you do an activity on a very fancy colorful mat, that in itself is going to be a distraction for the child. So we would use plain mats. In a home environment, it's also really helpful to use mats on the floor or the table, because it's going to give your child the perimeter, the outline of space that they can work within. And this was so helpful for me when I had my son and he was really, really young and he loved Lego. And if I didn't give him a mat, the Lego would be all over the house, right? But if I gave him a mat, he knew that the Lego had to stay within that space. And that made things really easy for us to manage Lego, and it prevented those accidents where you accidentally step on the Lego as well. So that really, really helps, and it helps when it comes to tidying up, because everything is in one place, it's easy to see it and to tidy up. So I do recommend, just as a family philosophy, use mats on the floor or mats on the table. Usually we would roll the mats, so once they're finished, they roll the mats and put them away. Use that to give your child a very distinctive workspace that they can put their toys or whatever it is that they're doing within. So that's for that question. And then I have another question about motivation and engagement. So hopefully it's not going to get too dark by the end of this question, so I'll just go on. But if it gets too dark, then we'll just have to continue on the next live that I do. So how can I get my child to be motivated to work with an activity that I have prepared for them? This is a question I get asked a lot. Now, first of all, if you've prepared an activity for your child and you haven't taken the time to observe them first, and the activity is not based on the child's interest or based on something the child has shown you they want to learn, and it's just an activity that you have set up because you like it or because you have your own agenda about what you're trying to get your child to learn, there is no guarantee at all that your child is going to enjoy it or like it or be motivated to do it, right? If you take the time to observe your child first, to choose an activity that follows your child's current interest, that's at the right level of challenge, then your child for sure will be motivated and excited to do it. And not only will they be motivated and excited, but they'll want to do it again and again and again and again and again and again. Okay? If you see that your child is not interested in the activity that you have provided for them, that means it's not the right activity. And we have to accept and be humble and accept that it's just simply not the right activity. You know? And you know, I've done this so many times, and every single Montessori teacher has done this so many times, that we will prepare a lesson, will take hours, and we'll imagine that the children will be so excited about it. But when we present it, they're not really showing any interest in it, right? Because actually that excitement was from us. That interest was from us. It wasn't from the child. I'm not saying that you can't present anything that your child is not interested in. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you really truly want that deep concentration, that deep level of engagement, it has to be something the child is motivated and interested in. Then you will begin to see that. You can try other things, because sometimes if a child has not been exposed to something before, and you prepare a totally new lesson that they've never been exposed to before, sometimes you will get lucky and it will be something they're very interested in because it's something new, right? But the true deep level of engagement is always going to be linked to interest. Interest is always one of the factors that's going to intrinsically motivate somebody, whether it's a child or an adult, to work and develop themselves. Without that interest, the child might be just motivated because it's new, or motivated because it's something that you're excited about. And actually, even if they do it, it's not going to give them that growth and development that we would love for our children. So observation, again, I've said this in so many videos, is key to understanding your child and understanding which activities you need to provide for them. And really simply, if you set up an activity and your child is not interested in it, and your child is not eager to work with it, or they just do it one time and then never go back to it, just accept that it's not the right activity at the right time. Maybe there'll be a time later for it, you know, or maybe they need something more challenging. Maybe you have to modify it and change it. But the key is to observe your child. When you observe your child, you'll know what they want. And if you are quick enough to observe an interest in your child and quickly set up an activity for your child and catch them while that interest is hot, you will see the difference between activity that you prepared on your own agenda and schedule and an activity that is prepared based on a child's interests. And one of the things that I like to recommend to people is, if you observe a child's interest and you don't have the activity ready, don't wait for the perfect material, don't wait for the perfect printable, just do the best you can with what you have to provide an opportunity for your child to further that interest. Catch it while it is hot, right? So let's say, for example, your child has found a dead bee, and they're walking around with this dead bee and they think it's so cute, and they're looking at the bee and they're asking you, what is this, what is this, what is this, right? And you don't have the puzzle for parts of the bee, and you don't have the photos, the 3-part cards for the parts of the bee. You don't have any bee materials. Don't wait for the order to come. Don't wait for weeks and take ages to print things out and then give the bee activity. No, just take what you can at that time. Use the Montessori principles. Teach them the parts of the bee with whatever you have, even if it's a simple hand-drawn picture. Do whatever you can there and then with the child. Capture that moment where they're motivated and excited about that thing, and you will see your child would engage with deep concentration, with deep love, and they will repeat again and again and again. And that is actually the key to success in your child's learning and development, right? Remember that the Montessori materials and the Montessori curriculum, these are all designed to be tools to unlock the child, but they're not the child themselves, right? They're tools. We use them to unlock the child. But once the child is unlocked, the way that they learn, it's not something that's limited to a schedule or limited to a curriculum or limited to something that you pre-planned. It's something that's going to be unique and individual to every child and has the potential to go in any direction. And I can give you another example, because I know some of you are wondering, well, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? Well, I'll give you an example. When my son was about, I think, 7 or 8, he suddenly became really, really interested in car mechanics, and he became really, really interested in engines and really, really interested in hydraulic systems. Now, I know about cars very basically. I actually love cars, which is maybe strange for a woman, but I do really, really love cars. And I know about different car modules and so on, but not too much information. So the beginning of his interest was really, really easy because I could just support him with that. Then his interest went deeper and deeper. Now, I didn't have Montessori 3-part cards. I didn't have a Montessori puzzle. I didn't have a Montessori bundle about cars. I didn't have any of that, right? I just captured his interest and gave him everything that we had access to allow him to expand his knowledge. So again, you know, like I've said in other videos, we got books out. I got books on things that I never even knew myself, you know. One of the things that I would love to do is when the interest comes, we go straight to the library. Straight to the library, straight away get the book. You know, we're coming to the library to find books about hydraulic systems. It doesn't matter if that book is a child's book or a picture book or an adult's book or a college degree book. It doesn't matter. All that matters to the child is that it's a book on that topic of interest, right? So straight away go to the library, straight away get the book, and then, you know, begin helping your child to understand what's in there, and then draw pictures with your child, and, you know, print pictures out for your child and help them. Now, I don't know anything about car hydraulic systems. Well, I didn't at that time. And, you know, because I gave him those, you know, I was on it when it was hot, and I gave him the books, and I gave him as much support as I could, using, you know, nothing really, just whatever we had. He actually began getting, you know, recycled materials and began building his own hydraulic system. And I remember that one day we went to a secondary school, and we were talking to the principal, and he was a physics teacher, and my son wanted to know something else that I didn't really understand about car hydraulics. So we asked him the question, and he was fascinated by how does this 7-8-year-old know all this information about the hydraulic system? How does he know it? You know, I've got, you know, he said that he's got children who are 16, 17, they can't even learn the basics. How does he know it? And the answer is because it was his interest. I didn't push him. I didn't force him. I didn't make him go further and further and further. He's the one who drove himself because he was motivated from within. And because he was motivated from within, he kept going until he satisfied that inner drive that he has. And I was there to guide, to support, to facilitate him. But I was not the one that was leading the way. He was leading the way, and I was following him. So, you know, when you see the activity that you provide for your child is not interesting, then just put it aside. Observe. Find out actually what is my child interested in, and take that chance to work with your child, to be with your child, to follow your child on that interest so that they can further it. And when you do that, you will begin to discover the hidden talents of your child, the hidden interests of your child, and you'll be able to support them in furthering that. So I hope that has answered that question. I'm probably going to do another video at some point about intrinsic motivation and how the Montessori method helps support that, and why intrinsic motivation is so important. But for now, I hope that's answered the question until the next time. And as you can see, it's getting quite dark here. So I'm going to have to end this live, and hopefully, inshallah, I will do another live and answer some other questions later on. So thank you so much all for joining, and see you tomorrow.